I have had a secret situation that has kept me from being able to go out and support myself as most people do. It is extremely restrictive, and it is a miracle that it hasn't caused us to die or become homeless. It hurt more than I can even explain because I long to embrace the sweet freedom of doing things easily. I always loved working when I had a normal person job, and I was really good at what I did. I think what hurt more than anything was having to suffer through it silently for a time due to the sensitive nature of it and the protection of those involved. Because love protects those that need it, and it's not self-seeking. So I had to lay down what people thought about me and all their misunderstandings of me to protect this person that I loved. And during all the years of going through it and having to stick out like a sore thumb for doing things differently, I was deeply misunderstood. People made so many judgmental accusations about how God led me to do things in order for His love support to come through in all the different ways that He had intended. And everything that I did was what He showed me to do. So I got severely abused by a lot of the community for following God's ways and not my own. Yet God has shown me so much love, and He has been my hero of support. Even when the whole world seemed to be against me, He was there. He loved me when no one else did, and He was there when no one in the world cared whether I died or lived. He was helping me navigate through a terrifying situation, while those who claimed to know Him were throwing insults and criticisms against me for doing things against what they saw suitable. I had to be different, and it hurt sometimes. It hurt a lot. But it also caused me to lean deeper into Jesus and just be sheltered in His love. However, being different is what God used to bless me and give me more miracles than I can even remember to write about. Jesus has been my best friend and the lifesaver for all of my needs. He was there when nobody wasn't. Nobody was there for me, and He was there. He loved me when others judged me and threw stones, and He loved me, and He forever does. Due to the very special person in my life that is behind all the reason of this, of why I do things different, I cannot yet share the delicate details of the situation. God knew all about the hidden things and the way I had to devote myself completely to caring for this person in a way that left me unable to save myself. I needed a hero, and that is exactly what God did. God met me in a place where I was cut off from being able to survive, and He gave me a promise to be my support for our housing and all of our needs. Then He told me to start a blog and to begin exposing my heart and faith journey to those He would call to read it. One night after I was verbally attacked for not earning my way like everyone else, God appeared to me and He said, "Your blog is your income." He defended me, and it meant more than I can pen into words. So for years, I've had to put my faith in God's promise to be our support in order to pay for our housing payments and needs. God has moved us all over, and we went from being stranded in a tiny hotel room with no car to living in beautiful homes, and God has blessed me with 3 cars since then. It all came through the pressures of applying my faith, and you can read the fine details of the journey in my book, Naked Wings, on www.diamondsfromthedust.com. Because of my unique situation and promise from the Lord, There is a week every month when I have to live differently than how most people live, even more differently. I have to use my concentrated faith to draw out the money that God promised to cover our rent. It requires all of my attention because applying faith without doubting is work. As I feel that week approaching, my heart speeds up and I know two things will be coming. The first thing is I will have to endure the bitterness of facing all my fears all over again and doing something terrifying to the logical mind. It is painful because it means putting every doubt and fear to death while facing life or death circumstances. Thankfully, I have a firm foundation of experience that helps take the edge off the fear for a little bit. The second thing that I can expect is a sweet reward of encountering God's intentional love again and having a new story to tell about it. I have done this sacred week of living extremely for over 6 years because that is what I've been called to do. Over 6 years ago, I was in a crisis with no place to go and no way to be helped. Before I even had to face the most terrifying time of my life, I encountered God in an unforgettable way. During that encounter, God gave me vows to be my unbreakable support through this journey, and He told me where to go. He showed me that living by faith and from my blog was my income exactly as He wanted from me. With that, He promised to be our rich and abundant support that is constantly being refilled miraculously. As an act of faith and having no other options, I followed His instructions. Because also to love God is to obey and to put His words above our own. When I arrived, God met me in that small hotel room and started to train me on how to live on faith alone. Even though I had no income, God continued to send me money to pay for my rooms in many ways. It was the hardest, yet most rewarding training ground of true faith. I began to vividly live by tangible faith for years, and God took me from one end of the country to another. He never once let us down, and we never had to be uncomfortable or be without a home or without income. In fact, it's just been the opposite. God blessed us immensely, and we have lived in high places with His help. I was even able to license my blog as an LLC, and I had proven income that has been rooted in miracles from God. He promised He would open up secret riches for us and unlock diamonds from out of the dusty ground that we had to endure. For over 6 years, I've been following Jesus on this journey, and He's so faithful to show me where to go, what to expect, and how to make my hopes tangible. It is only by a miracle from God's sovereign support that I made it this far. It is like making chocolate. Before adding the sweetness of honey or sugar, chocolate is bitter. It was historically consumed as a bitter drink for the elite and wealthy. It was sacred and not for all to enjoy. After a time, it was discovered that by adding milk and sugar, the chocolate was even more tasty and abundant for all to enjoy. Living by faith alone feels bitter at first, and it can be really lonely because there are only a rare few who understand and can relate to what it is like. Most just talk or share Bible words online, but not many have actually walked it out with absolute faith in life or death situations. That is like making the purest chocolate, and although it starts out very bitter, the ending is so super sweet. Normally, by the time I get to the week before I need to do a miraculously faith movement to cover my room, there appears to be no money and no way that it will arrive. It just means I'm about to get my next refill from my God account. But I cannot allow myself to be scared by how impossible it looks. During that time, I have to set aside all distracting thoughts and get serious about reaching into the unseen realm to draw out the fulfilled promises from God. It is far from stagnant or without effort. In fact, it is the most strenuous time of exercising faith I've ever known. There is a process to getting results, and God has shown me what to do through these years. God has also been showing me that He wants me to share that process with those who are interested in encountering more. I have put in a simple and easy to follow course that I have compiled together called Hope Repose. It seems like the hardest time for me to share because I'm entering into my sacred chocolate making time of needing to draw substance out of the unseen realm by faith to pay my room again. I only have a few days to go. The thought of having to share this priceless treasure that I use for myself, where there are also people with religious mindsets or phony faith types who can't value it as much as I do, is the last thing I'm wanting to do. I'd rather keep this treasure to myself. But like a flower, a rose, it's meant to be out in the public, to be inhaled and seen and marveled at the beauty. The fakers have absolutely no results and experience, but use useless head knowledge under all the appearance of being so perfect. But they really don't know anything. They aggressively spread poison of doubt like smoke, and yet they have no clue because they cannot see it from their own spiritual blindness and arrogance. Sharing this in the midst of those who do not appeal to me at all. However, Jesus once said to me that He likes to also reach out to the spiritually blind to remove the stumbling blocks. So how can I resist Him? He's everything to me, and He's the only one who's always been there. I cannot deny being faithful to Him because He is so faithful to us. He loved us first. The sweet part is God promised to reward me for sharing the joy of freedom that He has taught me. That way those who have been calling up by Him to step out and live under the banner of miracles too can also experience this. The results far outweigh the bitterness of facing those fears. In a logical sense, this is insane. I am basically trusting God to show up with thousands of dollars from out of nowhere in a matter of days. And I have done this time and time and time again, and He always blows my mind. Not only does He blow my mind with what we need, but He sends more than enough every time. I don't know where it will come from. I usually don't. But I do know that I've experienced God during this miracle for me over 100 times and counting over the course of 6 or more years. It doesn't come effortlessly at all. There was a process I had to learn, and once I stepped into the bitter side of chocolate by facing the fear of being homeless or falling into failure, I get to have the sweetness of fulfillment, and it must be completely concentrated. When it is just days before I need a miracle, I use the process that Jesus taught me, and I add the sweetness to the bitterness of doing something that seems so impossible and scary. During those days of long suffering, while I wait for God to show up with tangible results, I have to apply my faith with all my strength to believe that it is done. I have to consume only hopeful thoughts by adding pure sugar to turn the bitter chocolate into an abundance of sweet rewards. It is not easy, and during that week, I have to lock myself into a cocoon of sheer faith and hope. I have to lay down every fear, worry, and negative thought and choose to trust God no matter what. Like walking on a bridge, I have to not look down or I get scared with all the what ifs. What if the bridge breaks? What if I fall? I have to keep my head up and look at the clouds and how big and beautiful God's promise is. The book of James talks about those who have doubts and that they should not expect to receive anything from God. That is not a polite suggestion. It is a law, a spiritual law of faith and action. Those who have faith must believe, without a doubt, that God will answer and reward their petitions. However, what most of the non-active and no-result faith teachers do not realize is that dying to doubt is the hardest thing that most people will ever have to do if they're serious about seeing radical faith rewards. In the Hope Repose program, I simply and clearly show how I organize my thoughts and my attention to eliminate doubt and keep it out. Once doubt is mastered, then we can get into childlike faith and effortlessly bloom into the fulfillment of our hopes. This process and journey has changed me forever. There's no going back because I've been transformed. I've seen the King. I'm not even the same person that I was when I started. And I can't change who I am now. I'm too in love with God. I'm too in love with the encounters I've had. I'm not religious anymore. I love God with all my heart. Jesus is my best friend. However, I see clearly now without the stinky negative thoughts that I used to carry around, without all the rules and restrictions and the idols of money that most of the Christian people that get mad when people ask for money or want people to sow into something. They get mad because they have idols of money that is actually keeping them from touching the hem of Jesus' garment by faith. Because it's a judgment and it's only hurting themselves. I've learned from sheer experiencing by living miracle to miracle to miracle that most Christians don't realize their fulfilled hopes because they have too much fear of the very things that will give them freedom. It is upside down and backward. I'm so thankful that Jesus met me in that small hotel room when I had no one else to help me. Literally, a love rescue from God was my only option for survival, and that's exactly where He wanted me to be. Out of my love and true respect for Him, I'm sharing this process with you. Not because I want to do it. It's so much easier to keep it to myself and continue to savor and enjoy the sweet treat of the results, like the finest and most indulgent chocolate one has ever tasted in their mouth. Sharing this is part of my surrender and just another bridge to cross on the way to where I'm going. I'm celebrating with those who will encounter freedom unlike anything they've ever known. I started in a tiny Super 8 motel with no money, no car, and in a city I'd never known. My room was only paid ahead for 5 days, and I was trusting God to show up out of nowhere. It made no sense. He took me from the lowest point of my life and lifted me up to being blessed to reside in gorgeous homes and receive several cars through the time, including the newest one. It's like having a credit card from heaven with no limits, a faith card. I never know how I'm going to pay for the next housing expense or the next need, but God somehow miraculously covers it all. It is bitter when facing such extreme fears and impossible seeming conditions. But once the fulfillment happens and the hopes are made tangible, It's the sweetest experience to treasure. Chocolate is known to raise endorphins and serotonin levels in the brain, which brings happiness and relieves depression and pain. That is what it feels like when a miracle suddenly occurs. The bitterness of doing something so radical, terrifying, and different becomes the sweetest and richest treasure. When I have no money, or so it seems, in my account, and I need to pay for my room in only a handful of days, that is so bitter. I want to cry out in agony. However, if I add the sweetness of hope-fulfilled thoughts to that moment, then I will be able to see the fulfillment happen. It is in that moment of seeing my hopes become tangible that I know that I have directly encountered the intentional love of God. By experiencing His love, I'm rewarded with faith rewards that taste like the pure sweetness of rich, decadent chocolate. If you would like to learn more about the Hope Repose program, it's also on my website, diamondsfromthedust.com. My favorite way is to activate it in a bath when I can completely relax and be free from all distractions. That's also my favorite place to pray. It's all about having a way to get into the place of childlike faith. And this tool and others that I've made in my store really help me get lost into that faith zone where my hopes come to life and I forget about my problems and I step into the promise of God. Thank you for your loving kindness during this time of getting prepared. And now I'm off to make some chocolate for the next faith test. Love you. Have a super sweet day.